I should be like you, Mel.
Ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Transfer Show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Now, if you are new here, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. Also got a big thank out to our two sponsors. You've probably seen them earlier on, Dental on the Banks at dentalonthebanks.co.uk and of course Touchpoint Telecoms at touchpointtelecoms.co.uk for all your business telecoms needs. But it wouldn't be a transfer show if I didn't have two people with me. And first and foremost, and you will recognise him, he's been on this channel for years now, it is the one, the only, Manny Thangaduri. How you doing, mate?
All good, thank you, Craig. Lovely to be back for a little transfer talk. And it's almost as if the closer we get to the end of the window, the more the excitement happens. There's a school of thought which says that if you have to wait until the end of the window to get your business done, it's a sign of inefficiency. And yes, that is a direct attack on a certain team that likes to think of itself as a quality team but doesn't act like it. It is what it is, you know.
I know where you go with that, Manny, but I tell you what, let's get our other regular in, and it's always a pleasure to see this man on here. It's Mr. Dylan Reid. How you doing, Dylan?
Great, thank you, Craig. Really looking forward to another great show, hopefully. Seems like the Premier League is drawing nearer and nearer. Obviously, the EFL kicks off tomorrow, and that means next weekend the Premier League is back. So really looking forward to diving into some more transfer news as we get closer to the start of the season.
Definitely, mate, definitely. And, of course, we were talking about this before we come on air. This is a Peru top for anybody that doesn't know and is wondering what the hell I'm wearing. It's actually inspired by Chicha culture. I do apologise to the people of Peru if I've said that completely wrong, but it's a fusion of indigenous Andean traditions and modern urban life in South America. Of course, in particular Peru. So there we are. I thought it was a bit of a funky one. We all like funky shirts. And you were saying about a Columbia top as well, wasn't you, Dylan?
Yeah, I really like this kind of niche that you found yourself in of collecting football tops. And I was just saying, when I think of like South American tops, there's this lovely Columbia one from a few years ago. I'm not sure if you remember it, Manny. It's like a white top with the Columbia badge just across the middle, and that was a beaut. So if I ever get into properly football top collecting outside of Liverpool and Harriers tops, then yeah, that'll be one of the first I go for. If not for that Peru one, because that is lovely.
I'll
mate.
have to look that up. I'll have to look
Nice.
that up, Dylan, because for as long as I can remember, Columbia tops have always been, the classic canary yellow with the badge. So that might have been the away jersey of sorts. I might
I
have to
think
look that
it
up.
might have been. Yeah, that rings more of a bell.
Yeah, and obviously, of course, back in the day, the England jerseys were always very snazzy. You had the white shirt and the blue shorts, but the away, for the away kit, you had the red shirts and the white shorts, and then you had an all light blue kit. It's as if, as the years have gone by, the kits have started to become a little bit more boring, so to speak. But it is what it is. And Craig, let me say this: I love it when you get all cultural.
Yes, mate. Honestly, this is why I collect national team jerseys, because I've got Venezuela. I've also got the Colombia away jersey during the World Cup as well. The Belgian one as well, as everybody knows, Chris Farian loves that one from Leicester Till I Die. He's a massive fan of that one. He's not, he can't stand it, but I love the Belgium away one. Got a bit of a collection. It's costs a bit though, to be fair. But I'll tell you what, should we say hello to some people in the chat? And we have got Chris Hubble with us. Hope you're doing well, Chris. We've got Tom with us as well. He's saying evening, Chris. And Chris is saying evening back. Happy Friday Eve, everyone. The weekend is nearly here. Yes, it most definitely is. Of course, the EFL kicks off this weekend, and the first game in the Championship actually kicks off tomorrow. I think it's Wolves Blackburn, if I'm right in thinking. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so there will be a lot of interest on that one. Of course, Wolves will be looking to bounce back at the first available opportunity. Blackburn, favourite to go down from the Championship, so they'll be trying to avoid League One, which is crazy to say when you think that they were former winners of the Premier League as well, but of course Leicester's done that. Chris has said, I think he's saying, where's Craig? Believe it or not, anybody who knows StreamYard, I was sat in the wrong room, and Matt actually sent me a message and said, "Are you coming on, mate?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm actually sat here all by myself, not knowing what I'm doing." So, yeah, it's good that somebody's organised between us.
Craig, it's funny. I can just picture you playing that famous hit song, and just feeling completely miserable. I'm glad Matt pulled you back from the abyss there.
Yeah, I was thinking, where is everybody today? I thought, well, what am I doing? And then I was like, oh, I've joined the wrong room.
Happens to the best of us, Craig.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Harry said, "Evening, guys. Evening, Harry. Hope you're doing well, mate." Tom said, "Evening to Harry," and of course, the niceties. It's got a lovely, lovely community here. A long day today, Tom, but been waiting for this pick me up all day now. Good to see you, Harry, and yeah, hopefully it cheers you up. A bit of a long day, my end as well. To be fair, nice top, Craig. Thanks very much. I've got an Afghanistan one.
I can't believe there's an Afghanistan top out there. Really? Are they? Or is this? I don't. Maybe it's another sport. I've no idea.
Do you know what? That would be some unique football shirt. To be honest, an Afghanistan.
Awfully niche.
It would be, yeah. I've got to be honest. I've never seen one. Tell us what the Afghanistan football top looks like, because I haven't got a Scooby Doo. Mr. B says, "Big up again, Laz. Good to see you, mate." Wolves and Blackburn tomorrow. I'll be there in the North Bank. There we are. Harry is a wolf. I'm sorry to hear that, Harry. Is Tom a baggy?
Tom is a Kid Mr. Harriers fan, I believe, like myself. So
yes,
yeah, he's always on the wind up.
Oh, fair enough. He don't sway towards West Brom though.
No,
I think
not
I've
at all.
sworn at Harry now, haven't I? Harry's probably throwing something at the screen. So yeah, sorry, Harry. Can't wait to smash Spurs the following Saturday. Well, yeah, it could well happen. Manny would be very, very happy if Brentford do that, Mr. B. Were you at Hornchurch last weekend, Tom? Was you at Hornchurch, Dylan?
I was at Hornchurch last weekend, Craig. Tom, I can confirm, was not there, but I had made the roughly 3, maybe 4 hour trip down to Hornchurch in Essex from my town in the West Midlands, and we did lose 3-0. So, yeah, fun times all around to kick off the National League season. That's why, if you look at the next one down, Thomas said, let's move on from that. I think that's what we all need to do. We've got Eastleigh at home on Saturday, who I believe they're a South Coast team, but my geography is awful. I couldn't tell you if that's anywhere near Bournemouth or relatively near it in Eastleigh. So, yeah, hopefully a bit of a better result comes Saturday afternoon.
I couldn't tell you where Hornchurch is, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, I've learned something. Tonight. Sorry for all the Hornchurch fans that do tune in, but yeah, I think we're in favour of Kidderminster here. And on the topic of unique shirts, Maleka United 2023 away shirt is the most unique I've got. It's an absolute beauty of a shirt. What league do they play in?
We're going to check VAR on this. I'm going to quickly look at Malacca United, and we are going to search for this. It's the Malaysian football team in the Malaysian Super League. They dissolved in 2022. So riddle me that, Harry. How have you?
There we are.
Yeah, the Malaysian League. There we go. Yeah. So according to Wikipedia, they dissolved in 22. So. Yeah, if you're going for niche, I think Harry's won the award.
I think you have, Harry. Although I did try, but couldn't get hold of, unfortunately, a niche shirt a couple of years back, and that was Lion City Sailors of the Singapore Premier League.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but unfortunately, we was booked in because, of course, the Lion City Sailors crowd the capacity was full up. So we sat with the Sydney fans, and one, of course, gave us a middle finger behind as well. Nearer Southampton, to be fair, Eastleigh, and maybe not 2023, but Google their tie-dye shirts. That's the one I've got. There we are. I'm going to have to do that afterwards. And I might have to do a bit of eBaying, which will make the wife happy. Yeah, she won't be. Yeah, won't be particularly happy if I start ordering more football shirts. I think she probably thinks I've got enough. But I tell you what, let's get on with it and let's discuss the Cherries firstly, and then we'll come on to all the other activity. And Kidderminster Harriers fans, keep your eyes peeled. You've got to sit right to the very end, but we have got something special for you as well. So don't worry. But Pinto has said Cherries' business is 95% done, but is it enough? Dylan, I want to come to you first. Do you feel that the 3 signings we've made, considering we have got more games coming up this season, of course, with Europe and, of course, the intensity that comes with travelling around, we'll have at least 4 away Europa League games and 4 home ones. Do you think that we have got the capacity to compete on both fronts, or do you think we need a little bit more?
I do worry slightly, Craig. I think it's easy to see, teams who enter Europe for the first time, how they do struggle in their squads. Probably with the amount of games, Marco Rosa is also going to want to be playing a really intense brand of football, high pressing, high energy. So then ask the squad to do that on a Thursday night before potentially having to play again on a Saturday or Sunday, as well as all the travel involved and such a young squad. I think that could be tricky. You look at the 3 incomings as well, all quite youthful players as well. I think the oldest one there we're looking at is Juan Lu, who I believe is 21. So all the young incomings as well. I think there's already a great squad there, and thankfully, there haven't been too many major losses from the squad yet. I think, you're looking at the main one being Senesi. Obviously, the window still have to go. Might lose out on Alex Scott potentially. Might lose out on Tyler Adams. Hopefully not in both cases. But I do worry. If I was a Bournemouth fan, I would be feeling that maybe just a couple more nice additions here and there. Don't have to be major signings. This squad, as it is not in need of a major revamp. But adding a bit of squad depth. The way I would, if I could use an anecdote that I've picked up down the years, is Bournemouth have a really nice roast dinner with a great bit of meat in there. Now you need to add your roast potatoes, your carrots, and your parsnips to make it a full meal. Add to the squad depth, make it a great squad that can not only feature in the Premier League and be competitive there, but also potentially go on a really deep run in the Europa League.
Well, I'll jump over to you, Manny, and with a slightly different question this time. I spoke to Stefan Borson, as you know, a while back. I think it was about April, May time, wasn't it? When there was the thoughts that we was going to get potentially Champions League football. Of course, it ended up being Europa League football, which, to be honest, is a great achievement in itself. But we was discussing squad cost ratio. Stefan, unfortunately, this always happens. Because he was very honest and he explained, what the situation is from a realist point of view, he got quite a bit of grief from some Cherries fans out there, the usual suspects. But it is something that we need to consider. And do you think that maybe our hands are a little bit tied with regards to adding much more squad depth? Do you feel that maybe there needs to potentially be one big out to bring maybe two in?
I think the biggest issue here, Craig, is you mentioned that Marcos Senesi leaving was a sore point. And what made it, what rubbed salt into the wound, as it were, is the fact that he's left for free. Don't get me started on him joining Tottenham Hotspur and how those people saw it fit to claim him as one of their own when his Argentina side reached the World Cup final. It was his performances for Bournemouth that really got him into the standby list and into the squad eventually after one of the other defenders got injured. I was hoping that maybe in that light you would have cheered for Argentina because Senesi was one of your own, but it is what it is. And
I've got the Spanish flag, Manny. I've got the Spanish flag in the garden.
Yeah. We know about how every single Englishman was cheering for Spain. I was cheering for Argentina. I wanted Leo Messi to win the second World Cup, but listen, let's not go back there. Now,
yes. Moving swiftly on.
The biggest issue, of course, is when you lose players and don't get very much for them in return, it's always going to be a bit of a problem. If you have to sell players, you only have to take a look at what Aston Villa have done. They sold 3 of their leading players who were pivotal in Villa winning the Europa League last season, including ex-Cherry Morgan Rogers, who, as we all know, was courted by Arsenal, but we arrogantly refused to pay what Aston Villa wanted. We thought that we could dictate terms and offer what we believe he was worth. And then Chelsea came in and said, well, if you're not willing to pay top pound for him, we'll have him, thank you very much, and he'll enjoy playing with us more than playing under Mikel Arteta. But after selling, obviously, those players and getting a cool 160 million quid in cash, they obviously were able to bring in some players, and now there's talk about bringing some more players on loan, the likes of João Palhinha, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and 1 or 2 others. And this is a club, of course, that is now competing in the Champions League, so at least they're not playing on Thursday anymore. But they're going to look to try to improve on their quarterfinal position, which they achieved in 24-25, when in January they made a killing in the loan market, getting the likes of Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio to join them, among others, and they did really, really well. So I know that it was said that Bournemouth don't necessarily need to sell players because of the wealth of Bill Foley, but there is a situation now where, you would have had to sell some players, and the fact that Marcos Senesi was allowed to leave for free, you could have eventually got some money for him, and the fact that you weren't able to get any money for him means that financially your hands are now tied. Clubs are going to have to sell to buy. You want to, be it Bournemouth, be it Aston Villa, be it Brentford. Of course, Steve being in the chat will testify to that. Be it even the likes of Brighton and Hove Albion. It's like, you've got to recycle and refresh and renew, and that's sort of the way it is. So because financially you may be a little bit tied, it might be difficult to really get the players that you want. And when you say that your business is 95% done, I would go so far to say that one more player would possibly, complete the lot, but you will have to box clever and decide who you would want. And it does seem to me, as Dylan said, that you already seem to have a pretty good squad. But the likes of Adam Smith, Lewis Cook, David Brooks, and the other veterans in the squad, with them in the team, you have an excellent blend of, experience and youth, and that's going to be obviously key for how you proceed going forward. And obviously, we've got Mr. B saying that you might have to sell Alex Scott, but then if you do sell him, you've got to have a replacement for him, because you don't replace a talent like that easily, and good quality replacements for him in that position are going to be thin on the ground unless you have a really extensive scouting network. But we saw how Ryan announced himself to the world last season. For what it's worth, he is still there. You sold Antoine Semenyo to Manchester City and got a decent fee for him. So it could very well be that the likes of maybe James Hill after this season could very well be courted by big clubs, and you are now going to have to consider whether or not it might be best to sell them. Having said that, Marco Rosa is also quite good at working with what he has, as is the likes of Unai Emery and as are several other managers who will be competing in Europe this season. So I think, knowing him as well as I would, he'll find a way. And he's managed in Europe many times before. He will know what to do. The big issue, and we might possibly be talking on this a little bit later on, is how you approach the cup competitions. And, Steve was actually talking to me about the League Cup draw, which was made, and a lot of the fixtures have already been decided. And the European teams won't come into the picture until the next round. So you might now have to decide if you can actually afford to go on a domestic cup run. And I remember when you reached the FA Cup quarterfinals in 2025, a lot of people were rooting for you, weren't you? And it was just disappointing that you weren't quite able to go a little bit further. But then, you had Manchester City, if memory serves me right.
Yeah.
It was never going to be easy. So I think I would say if you can get someone over the line, it might very well either be a decent free transfer or a loan deal, which can be partly financed by that player's parent club. Then that could pretty much solve your problems. But for now, though, I think Marco Rosa should be looking at these remaining pre-season fixtures as a means of trying to just work with what he has right now, try and gel the team together and see where they go.
For my penny worth, I think that we maybe need one more, but we're going to have to be very strategic. I was trying to work out SCR, so squad cost ratio, and of course, by being in Europe, our squad cost ratio percentage is actually lower than if we hadn't qualified for Europe. If you want reference to that, go and watch that video with Stefan Borson afterwards, because I'll be honest, I could try and explain it here, but I'm not going to do it justice. But let's just say this, we are sailing a little bit close to the wind with regards to that, if not going slightly over. So the next signing is not going to have to be just a good young player. They're going to have to be a good young player, or maybe even a veteran, somebody who's been in the Europa League before, who can bring a little bit of experience, but also going to have to be on low wages and going to have to be fit in to that without going too extortionate. Everybody would love a player to come in who's been there, done that, got the T-shirt, won the Europa League, blah, 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 blah. But I think we've got to be really careful because we are sailing close to the wind. The business so far, though, I've got to be honest, I'm happy with. I think, Sanchez, Gianluca Sanchez from Sevilla, excellent signing. For 11 million just over 11 million is absolutely brilliant. It's an absolutely brilliant signing. Of course, he's coming in to challenge Adam Smith for the right back position. Let's be honest, Adam Smith's always been quite good at keeping hold of that position. I know he did lose it for a period last season, but he's always shown and he's always stepped up to the plate. And I think Andoni Iraola made him a better player by sitting off a little bit that attacker, so he's got a little bit more room to make that move. Of course, we needed centre backs. Antonio Silva's come in from Benfica. I think that's a really, really good signing. Very, very sensible. They're all 22 years old. And Alvaro Rodriguez from Elche, who might not look prolific, but you've got to consider what team he was in and actually what he did. Not just putting the ball in the back of the net, but also setting goals up as well in what is a little bit of a struggling team. So overall, I'm very, very happy with the transfer activity. I think our hands are a little bit tied because we are sailing close to the wind. And I think that's why Thiago Pinto has said, look, let's be realistic, 95% of our business is done. I think there probably will be one or two more that leave. I hope it's not a big player. I don't think it needs to be a big player, but at the same time, I think one more, in particular in an attacking position, won't go amiss. And I think actually somebody with that little bit of experience as well. So yeah, that's my penny's worth. Let us know as well in the comments what you think. I'm just going to quickly run through the comments because they are buzzing. And Mr. B said the Malaysian Man United probably as bad as them too. There we are, buzzing. Kidderminster section. I couldn't even say it there, Dylan. That's a bit bad, isn't it? Yes, you'll have to keep your eyes peeled, Tom. Maybe getting more players, Craig. I think, like I say, the hands are tied a little bit. We've got to be a little bit careful. SCR is probably going to cripple us. It's going to cripple a lot of teams. I think you look at, I think Brighton aren't away, from being under threat of SCR as well. I think the problem is with SCR, it is the leveler. If you're a bigger club, you are going to have more capability to, bring in more players. Whereas a smaller club like ourselves, like Brighton, like Brentford, we're going to be a little bit hamstrung. So it's just a bloody leveler that, just kind of keeps us in our place. And it's a real shame, but it's the way football is, unfortunately. Harry said, maybe more importantly than player signings, I think Rosa is a great manager and possibly their best bit of business in the window. In fact, have a watch when I upload it. Probably he'll be up for tomorrow morning. I did have an interview on TalkSport 2 where I previewed Bournemouth season, and I did mention as well Marco Rosa's the transition from Andoni Iraola to Marco Rosa, so do watch that as well. It's not in the most, it's not with a palm tree behind me because it was in an office, but there you go. They should sign Ballon d'Or contender Zach Brown.
I can add context to this, Craig. This is another Harrier-centric comment. And this is referencing one of our midfielders, Zach Brown, who I can promise you would be closer to turning into Superman himself than he would to ever compete for the Ballon d'Or. So I appreciate the Harriers player love, but this is like to say Ballon d'Or next to Zach Brown's name is the best oxymoron you will ever hear.
There we are. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the contenders are Harry Kane, Michael Olise, and Mbappe's in there as well, isn't he? Those three are
in there after the World Cup as well.
Yes.
So it's going to be an interesting race, but that's a conversation for another day, I'm sure. Yeah,
definitely. But Zach Brown, you can't see him winning it than Dylan.
No, never, ever. No, we'll freeze over Craig.
Fair enough. Mr. V for life. Steve has said, you need some really big signings, I'm afraid, but you still have a good team. But being in Europe and trying to cope with the Prem could take its toll. That, I think, I'm realistic to that. It did brighten in towards the end of the season when they were in Europe. We beat them 3-0 actually at Dean Court. And you did see some leggy players out there. On a normal day, still think we would have beaten them because we did play well that game, but they were leggy. Marcus said, do we know who we play in Europe first? The draw is going to be in a couple of weeks' time. They're still playing the qualifying rounds as well. Boog Troop says we should sell Ryan. I think you've gone absolutely mad. I think Ryan is an absolutely brilliant player. Marcus said, this is typical of us. This is little old Bournemouth thing again. We are so easy panicking about coping in the Premier League at first and now Europe. Panic, panic. To be honest, I think our hands are a little bit tied. We've just got to play within the rules. I don't think the rules are really fair because Bill Foley's got the money, but the rules are the rules, and we've just got to adhere to them. If we don't want any more if we don't want any points deductions, we don't want to go back there. Harry said teams have solidified after being in Europe before, like Wolves and Villa. It's definitely doable. Victor Omishan holding talks with Arsenal money. There we are.
No, not going to happen.
Thomas says, heard Osimhen wants to win trophies, so he's pulled out of talks. But that's a bit of a dig at Arsenal.
He's not wrong, He's not wrong.
Basuma going on a free at the moment, Craig. I'll tell you what. I'll let Matt in the Matt's in the comments. Matt, let us know if you think that's quite a good signing. I don't think that's that bad a shout, actually.
If I could, Craig, there's a few. There are a few really interesting players going on a free at the moment. I thought Yves Bissouma is probably one of the most high-profile of those, but there are some former Premier League players going on frees that I think are really interesting deals at the moment. First of all, Zinchenko. He had a good time at Arsenal, good time at Man City. I know he's played at left back, but could do a job in midfield. I know Manny's shaking his head. He's got maybe a bit of trauma behind him, but even just to be an option, just to come in and play the odd game, fill in some minutes, or even a player like Wilfried Zaha. I know he's in his 30s now, and a Crystal Palace legend as well, but he's just left, I believe it was Galatasaray in Turkey, and he's left now. So you're looking at these type of players, players who have been around the Premier League for years, and I think Bournemouth could do a lot worse than signing someone like a Bissouma, like a Zinchenko, like a Zaha, just to come in and be a bit of experience, a level head, on decent wages as well. And even if it's just to play, the odd half an hour game in Europe or a low stakes Premier League game, potentially even something like that, if Bournemouth wanted to put their nose in. I don't know what you think about any of the names I just mentioned.
I think we need one. I think we need one player in. It'll be interesting to see what we're going to do. I'll leave it for Matt. Matt, in the comments, pick out the players that you think, from what Dylan's mentioned there, you think we'd be quite interested in. And whether or not you agree with Steve, is Bissouma a good signing for us? There we are. We'll keep it a little bit interactive in that sense. But yeah, I think we need one player, in all honesty.
I'll tell you what, Craig. I'm sorry for cutting in, but
go on.
You said you wanted someone who's won the Europa League. He was, of course, a teammate of Dominic Solanke when they won it in Bilbao under Ange Postecoglou. Ange got the best out of him, but Tommy Frank was never really able to work with him. He seems to be the type of person who, needs someone who's quite sympathetic, but also a little bit demanding, but who can also trust him. So maybe he wouldn't be a bad shout. But if you are forced to sell Alex Scott, you should make sure that you get top pound for him. And if you get Bissouma on the free, jobs are done.
Well, I think it would make sense, but it'd be good to see what Matt also thinks about Bissouma as well. Matt said that I'm doing my best David Brent. How'd you do it? I don't know. That's more the Macarena than it is anything else, isn't it? If you watch The Office, you know what I'm doing there. Mr. B for life's laughing, and folks coming back from injury alone could be key. Yes. Well, I tell you what. Let's quickly move on to the next part. And of course, a player has left Dean Court today, and that is Enis Unal, who's headed back to Getafe on a free transfer. But the Cherries do get 1.5 million in potential bonuses and 20% of any future sell-on. Dylan, Enis Unal, I'm a little bit disappointed by this for the sole reason that we might need a little bit of strength. We might need something a little bit different in Europe. We might need somebody who I think is quite good in the air, can score, a fantastic goal every now and again. What do you make of this? Should we have kept him on considering the workload's going up this season, or do you feel that his return was just a little bit too weak?
I think this is a real head scratcher for me, Craig, personally. I think you look at Unal and maybe he never did truly find his footing in the Premier League. I always thought he was a little bit on and off. But I thought on his good days, he was a really good utility sub and a utility player that could offer an option deeper, up front, or potentially on the wings. I think the biggest question for me is, why has he gone on a free? I think there's a player that was under contract, a player that you've just decided we're going to let him walk on a free transfer, and it's performance-based bonuses. So maybe if he perhaps returns 15 goals for Getafe, or they achieve a top 8 finish, for example. And even then, with a performance-based thing, you're only getting 1.5 million back and 20% of a future sell-on clause. For me, I'm a bit confused about that. That was a bit of a poor bit of business potentially on Bournemouth front. But for a player in Europe, I think for a player of his ability, maybe he never adapted to the physicality of the Premier League, but playing against European opponents, teams from the likes of France, Spain, Portugal,
yes,
perhaps they're a little bit not as physical as teams are in England. That's where he could have thrived, especially as Krupi is going to miss the first 3 to 4 months of the season with his ankle injury. It is the report being that by Unal leaving, it does mean Daniel Jeppesen is going to stay around the summer and he's not going to pursue any interest that we discussed last week from the likes of any championship teams. I think Genoa and Schalke, or maybe it was Hamburg, were the other team linked with his services. I think that's obviously the player who wins the most out of this is Jeppesen. He's going to be able to get a look in under Rosa and potentially reignite his Bournemouth career. But from a business standpoint and from a player standpoint, I think this is a bit of a confusing deal.
Unal was a flop, wasn't he? You could probably say that looking at the statistics, but I think he did some good as well. The goal against West Ham, was absolutely unbelievable. Didn't think he had that in his locker. I think he did pop up with some important goals at times. He wasn't really consistent, but then again, he was always playing second, third fiddle to Evan Nielsen, and then of course Krupi as well. I think it makes sense that he does go, but then again, it's a case of this season when we are in Europe, Enis Unal, if Krupi is a little bit tired, play him against the Cypriot champions. No disrespect to Paphos FC or whoever they are. But, you would expect Enis Unal to be able to take the game to a team like that. He might not, but, and of course that decision then needs to be made. But in all honesty, he's an option for the early stages of the Europa League, which actually is perfect for us. Because, like I say, Krupi's out for the first 3-4 months. Once Krupi's back, there probably isn't the need for Unal. Plus, the games will probably get a bit harder as well. So, therefore, I think Unal could have done a job in that tournament. But let's be fair. There is, as well as being some good teams like the Juventuses, the Milans, and teams like that, there is also some poor teams in the Europa League that do get through as well, and you should expect us to be. The ACL was costly for him. Yeah, I agree with this, Matt. It was never going to be a starter. Offered something different from the bench. 100%. 100%. I'm a little bit disappointed by it. I personally think that maybe we should have kept hold of him, just for maybe sell him in January, and then. But yeah, now it just feels a little bit premature. I agree with you, Craig. One more player in would be good. Yeah, and I think it probably needs to be in the attacking department. Manny, surprised about this?
Quite surprised. I mean, I do seem to remember Craig speaking about Unal and saying that, yes, he would be a good option off the bench. And as you've said, when it comes to the Europa League, you will have ample opportunities to rotate the squad and give some people players a chance. You're spot on. There are some very, very poor teams in the Europa League, in addition to the teams that should be in the Champions League but couldn't really qualify, like Aston Villa, who ended up winning the whole thing last year. And hopefully, if there had to be an English team to win the Champions League this year, I'm not being biased. I hope Bournemouth do win it, but that would be an absolute dream. And as Dylan has said, letting him go for a free transfer, notwithstanding that you are going to get £1.5 million in potential bonuses and 20% of the sell-on. I mean, you still got done dirty here. And this is something that you're now going to have to start to learn how to deal with, because you can't have a situation where, you end up losing players on a free without getting some sufficient money for them.
Yeah.
And obviously, Mr. Borson will tell you that when it comes to, certain players who are on long-term contracts, the amortization and book value factors will mean that eventually, their value will end up decreasing. So even if you do end up selling a player for slightly less than that for which you purchased him, you can still make a profit according to book value. Although I personally believe that, with inflation rising every year, that won't necessarily be much of a problem. Much of an advantage in that regard. And of course, when it comes to selling youth players like James Hill, who are developed with the Bournemouth Academy, you end up getting pure profit for them, as it were. But again, you're going to have to really improve your transfer dealings and make sure you start getting more money for players, because we are in a situation right now where, certain clubs, as I've said, now have to literally become selling clubs in order to make sure they can continue to, stay within the limits of SCR and also fund future transfers like what Aston Villa are doing. And they're correcting the mistakes that were made under the previous administration, which very nearly put them on the verge of, going bankrupt and being liquidated before the current owners took over and said, no, we're going to save this club. And they sold Jack Grealish for 100 million quid, and they've kept afloat ever since. So don't take for granted that just because you've got a wealthy owner, you may not necessarily need to sell players. You've got, you will need to sell players, but more importantly, you'll need to sell players that, will get you some money. And I'm going to go to this comment over here. I don't doubt that you are a good selling club, and obviously you got, good money for Antoine Semenyo. But the biggest issue here, Hecky8579, is that for every Antoine Semenyo, you have at least one or two players who are leaving on a free. And ideally, you don't want to see that happening. You want to make sure that you get as much of a return as possible from your players. And Matt also saying that, if Unal was on some pretty decent wages, it might, relieve the wage bill. So that's maybe another externality there. But, it's in terms of the squad strength, I think it could be a loss. And this is where now, as you said, Craig, you're going to have to box a little bit clever with regard to who you might want to sign in order to complete your transfer business, especially with regard to giving the Europa League a very good crack.
Definitely. And actually, Matt has mentioned here with regards to Basuma, is that an area we need to strengthen? For me, centre-back is key with Milo injured. Yes, I do completely agree with this comment. The only reason I think Basuma would be a good signing for AFC Bournemouth is because Basuma was part of that Tottenham Hotspur team that went all the way and won it against Manchester United. He was influential in that team. I think he played pretty much every match in the Europa League. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he would bring that added experience of how to get through that tournament, and that little bit of experience. If he is going to be on a free and it is going to be affordable, maybe bring him in. See what he can do for the one season. He is 29 years old. That's probably old in our relation to the players that we normally bring in. But I think that added experience would be quite good. But I tell you what, let's rumble on.
Yeah, just briefly, Craig, I'll mention that Basuma did play 10 Europa League games, which probably would have included the knockout games. So he might have been rested for a few games against the weaker opposition. But as you say, he was quite pivotal, and Ange Postecoglou got the best out of him. So hopefully Marco Rosa will have that sort of effect. And I know that Steve in the chat still, is quite fond of Thomas Frank, the supposed proper manager. I'm sorry, mate, if you're watching this, I will say it again. He's just a Danish Graham Potter. The job was too big for him. And I don't think he'll be back.
I'm just going to comment on this as well. Danny Ings on a free must be finished by now. I love Ingsy, but no. There we go. Moving on. So David Moyes is supposedly keen on Marcus Tavernier. Why would you walk away from Europe? We give our views on this speculation. Danish Potter. I think that this is absolute rubbish. I honestly think this is absolute rubbish. I cannot see Marcus Tavernier walking away. Everton, actually, I'll give them their due. I saw them in a friendly the other day against, Newcastle, and I thought actually they were better than what I expected from them. They might actually be fairly decent this season. I had them down as one of the teams to struggle in my mind. I always have Everton down to struggle. They're such a boring team to watch. But I can't see Marcus Tavernier going there. Dylan, could you see this? In what world would this ever make sense?
Yeah, it'd be a bit of a strange one, and I think that's the word I'd use to describe Everton's transfer window. Strange. They completed a bit of a head-scratching deal. You very rarely see a direct swap deal, let alone one regarding players with no transfer fee. They took away Dwight McNeil, who's now gone to Crystal Palace. They were interested in him on a loan basis in January. Everton said no, but instead they've waited a few months, said, well, we will let McNeil go to Palace, but then we'll take Brennan Johnson off your hands after he failed to impress at Selhurst Park. So again, a bit of a strange one. From a player perspective, Tavernier, like you said, why would he want to walk away from European football? I do think Everton are a little bit away from really competing for a European place yet. I think they're missing a few players, especially in the fullback and defensive areas. I thought they were, perhaps it's me, underrating the player that John Stones currently is. He's now obviously gone to Inter Milan. I thought he was nailed on for a return to Everton. I thought that would have made a lot of sense for them to bring him back to the club. But instead, they haven't signed any defensive reinforcements, I don't believe, as of yet. They are in desperate need of some fullbacks, especially after Seamus Coleman left. But back onto the attack and back onto Tavernier. I don't understand why he'd want to go there. I can completely understand why Everton are keen on him. He's a fantastic player, bow-footed, can play off both wings, can even do a job in the 10 if you need him to, which Moyes likes to play, so potentially could be used as Dewsbury Hall cover if he was there. But like you said, Craig, this is all hypothetical. I don't want to see Tavernier at Everton, and I don't think, for me, it's a step down, and I don't think he should take it, at least not for a few more years.
I'm just going to go to this comment. If Tavernier goes, it's got to be for the money. It can only be for the money because at the end of the day, I see Everton as a backward step. Everton are a bigger club than AFC Bournemouth. We're not going to lie about our position in football. We are a small club with an 11,000-seater stadium, but we're a team on the move. We've got a fantastic new state-of-the-art training centre. And, it's a good place to play football and a good place to live as well. But, Everton do have that pulling power, that history behind them. In fact, I've read Duncan Ferguson's book. And do you know what? I really like Duncan Ferguson as man. I always have done.
I'm joking.
Yeah, but in all honesty, they are a good club, Everton. As much as I take the piss out of them, but this would not make any sense whatsoever. Everton, Connor has said Everton may be better in the long term with the new stadium and everything, but at 27, why would Tavernier move? Best chance ever to play in Europe for him, surely, and there's no guarantees Everton will play in Europe. If he does go there, say for example, he signs a 3-year contract, are Everton going to play in Europe? Possibly not. But I am going to throw a little bit of a spin on this in a second. Bit of an insult to Thomas that, let's be honest, Spursy would destroy any manager. De Zerbi hasn't been there long enough to get messed up. I think he's done quite a good job. Tavernier is quality. We would take him, to be honest. I don't think he'd go to Brentford, though, unfortunately for you, Steve. So enough of that. But I tell you what is in my mind about this. There was a rumour circling at the start of this window that Iliman Ndiaye was on our radar. And Iliman Ndiaye is a player who, let's be honest, when we beat Everton in that game at the start of, not last season, but the season before, and we turned it on its head. They were in pole position. They were cruising. We turned it on its head. Iliman Ndiaye was taken off by Sean Dyche, and that's where it all fell apart. Iliman Ndiaye is an absolutely brilliant player, and I wonder if the club do see Iliman Ndiaye as the player that they feel would bring something extra to AFC Bournemouth. Manny, in that point, would they potentially use Marcus Tavernier to get that deal across the line? Because Tavernier is brilliant, but do they prefer Iliman Ndiaye? Could there be something else going on behind the scenes?
It would be strange, this one, because with Ndiaye, you've also got to ask the question, can he offer the same qualities that Marcus Tavernier already provides Bournemouth? Because as you mentioned, Craig, he's excellent at playing in the 10, but also has the ability to play either wing, definitely two-footed, like a certain Mr. Semenyo, of course. Mm-hmm. And you've also got to be honest with yourselves and ask the question, can Ndiaye offer more? Because Ndiaye, for me, he's been on the radar, Craig, for several big clubs, and I believe, there's been talk about us trying to go in for him because of our failed attempts to secure a quality left winger. Yeah, we got the Greek guy Solis, who I'm sure your now ex-goalkeeper Christos Mandas will know very well. Yeah. But we need a lot more in terms of actual quality. We are trying to sort of offload Gabriel Martinelli, and he's an example of someone we can sell for pure profit because he sort of developed himself at the Arsenal Academy, as it were. But unless we sell Martinelli, we can't get another replacement. And then in the event of, the Vinicius and Rodgers proposals completely, falling flat on their faces, we would need a new left wing, and Ndiaye would be a good target for us. But can Ndiaye also play in the 10? Can he offer what Tavernier offers you? I'm not too sure that he can. Yes, he's a baller, Steve. We all know that. And as I've mentioned, he has been on the radar for many big clubs. But again, would he be necessarily what Bournemouth would need right now? And Tavernier has been, I would say, having seen you lot extensively, he's been one of the players over the years who's been pretty much pivotal in you being able to solidify yourself as a Premier League club and now qualify for Europe. So if I were in his shoes, I wouldn't want to move either. But then you only need to take a look at Marcos Senesi, who refused to sign a new deal and went for free. And he's now gone to join De Zerbi's circus at Tottenham, where they've been splashing money, left, right, and centre to get players they want. And all this after finishing 17th twice in a row, albeit with the Europa League title sandwiched in between. I'm going to call this right now and say they're still not going to qualify for Europe. If they finish, in mid-table or even in the top half, I think that'll be a successful season for them. It's going to take time. I wouldn't even worry about Spurs right now, although to be fair, they have signed some absolute ballers. But Senesi, of course, being one of them. They're not going to be playing in Europe either. So, as was mentioned, I think with regard to Everton, yes, it was Connor who said it could very well be for the long term with the new stadium and everything. And of course, although people criticise Spurs' stadium as being a bit of a lavatory pad, for want of a more genteel term, it is, a state-of-the-art stadium. There is always going to be potential for greater revenue coming in, even if the wage bill isn't that high. And maybe they can build on something for the long term if the players are reasonably well paid. But I don't see any sense in letting Tavernier leave. And if you lose him, you're going to lose someone whose experience and, performances and leadership have been so pivotal to the club over the years. You cannot easily replace that unless you get a genuine replacement. And I can't understand why Tavernier would even consider this or entertain this. And if Bournemouth do end up entertaining this and they end up getting a replacement who may not be up to scratch compared to how Tavernier is, it's going to be a problem. So I only hope this doesn't materialize. I hope he stays at Dean Court, plays a part in your historic European campaign, and then afterwards, you can always analyse what might be better and take it from there.
Yes, I hope Tavernier stays. Iliman would be a great signing, but at the end of the day, I don't think we want to replace Tavernier with him. It'd be great to have them both, but you don't always get what you want. But Adams is also seen as a Tonali and Bruno replacement. Newcastle United are the latest club to show interest in the US star. I think that this is absolute rubbish. Dylan, do you think this is absolute rubbish?
Yeah, me too. Look, it's obvious that Newcastle need to rebuild their midfield. They've had arguably the worst transfer window of any Premier League team. I would argue that Liverpool are following closely behind, but for me, I think Newcastle have had an abhorrent window, and they just need anyone through the door at the minute. They obviously signed Bamba from Monaco, but he's unproven and still quite young. They need proven Premier League quality, and even when they tried to get someone like that through the door, they tried targeting Pierre-Emile Højbjerg from Marseille, obviously the former Southampton and Tottenham midfielder, and he said, no, I don't want to join you. So, even when you're a bit part player at Marseille, you're guaranteed first team football in the Premier League with Newcastle, and they are still saying no. This is an absolute horror show of a window. So Tyler Adams is obviously much, much better than Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and would walk into Newcastle's midfield like he would get into most Premier League midfields at the moment. But if he was to end up a Newcastle player by the end of the window, I would be seriously surprised. So they can be interested all they like. They're going to be interested in so many names until the end of the window. I wouldn't be surprised if someone outrageous tries to say that Alex Scott would be linked with the club. Absolutely not. It's even worse to hear Tyler Adams being linked, let alone Alex Scott, who for me is a better player than Adams. So Newcastle, obviously, like I said, they need midfielders. They need a rebuild. Will Tyler Adams be the cornerstone of that midfield rebuild? I doubt he will be. So for me, I agree with you, Craig. I think this is absolute nonsense. I think the media are going to link Newcastle to almost every midfielder under the sun from now until deadline day. And I'd be awfully surprised to see Adams go into Newcastle. So like you said, I don't see this happening, and I think this is absolute rubbish.
Same. Newcastle having a disaster. Nobody wants to go there, says Mr. B. And Thomas said, to be honest, if Adams went to Newcastle, I see it as a step backwards. Bournemouth are on the up, and Newcastle are on the way down. Yes, most definitely. And of course, Eddie Howe leaving there as well. Tom said, no one wants to be at Newcastle. Craig, I wouldn't listen to this at all, mate. Yeah, I think this is rubbish. I think, and you know what? This is the first time I'm going to bring this out. But over to our roving reporter.
Bullshit.
There we go. So, yes, thank you to our UTC IAD reporter. He's recently been hired. It is Carl Pilkington. Yes, Carl, what do you make of this again?
Bullshit.
There we go. Should we move on? So, the last of the Cherries news is Ryan. Oh, should have saved that, to be honest, for this one. To be fair,
we give Carl another ring. I think he'll be needed again here.
Yeah, I think so. So, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Liverpool, and Arsenal are after Rayan. But Rayan supposedly wants to go to Saudi and asked Cherries to sell him for £25 million. Now, I would not be surprised if these clubs have probably got Rayan on their target list. Let's be fair. He is a good player. We signed him for Vasco da Gama for a very, very, very modest fee. Of course, he's got a very big extortionate release clause in his contract, if it's to be believed. But at the same time, we don't need to sell him. And he's under quite a long contract. Dylan, this is pure and utter. What's the best way I can put this? It's horseshit, isn't it? This?
What does Mr. Pilkington say? Pilkington say?
Hang on. Let me just see. Hello, Carl. What do you say about this one?
Bullshit.
There we are. I think he's had his say. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if these teams have got Rayan on their radar eventually, but why would he want to go to Saudi and say, I want to be sold for 25 million?
Yeah, absolute madness, this, Craig. Obviously, look, I think there is truth in the rumours that perhaps those teams have him on their radar. They know how good players he come from Vasco da Gama can be, and they saw how good Rayan was during the second half of last season. However, the rumour that Rayan, first of all, wants to go to Saudi, which we've seen for young players has been a bit of a career graveyard at the minute, is absolute rubbish. And also the fact he's trying to tell the club, sell me for 25 million euros. What player does that? I would love to meet as an absolute fool started this rumour and shake his hand and say, congratulations, mate. You are a prat, a professional prat, because that is rubbish. Look, obviously, teams like Real Madrid, PSG, Liverpool and Arsenal will always be linked to these type of players, especially Liverpool at the minute, needing a right forward. Arsenal as well, always looking to recruit a forward. We've seen how heavily they've been linked with some attackers. And PSG have recruited lots of attackers, so no surprise to see them linked. Real Madrid, maybe not so much. Now they've splashed 120 million euros on Yan Diomande. But look, for now, I don't think Rayan is going anywhere. Does he want to leave? I don't think so. Why would he? He's off to a flyer at Bournemouth. Would Bournemouth want to sell him? No. He's one of their best players, and he's set for another really exciting season. And third of all, would he go for £25 million? Obviously not. He'd arguably go for 4, maybe 5 times that. So, yeah, absolutely. I think this is utter nonsense. And like it says on there, this is how much nonsense there is in the media at the minute. Rubbish.
Excellent. Dylan, I've got to show these comments, and I do apologise in advance as well. I thought Carl was already on the show. He's at the bottom. No.
Wow.
I thought that too. Dylan, in a second, I'm going to make you full screen. Can you give us a bullshit and we can replace Carl?
Yeah, give me a countdown and I'll give it. Everyone get their cameras ready.
Right.
Bullshit.
Oh, I was going to count you down there. Do it again.
No, I panicked. I saw the thing go full screen.
3, 2, 1.
Bullshit.
Mate, that's better than Carl Pilkington's. There we are.
Let me chime in, please.
Come on, Maddie.
Go on, Maddie.
What? Countdown, please.
Oh, Maddie's going to do it. Right. Full screen. 3, 2.
Oh, yep. Yeah, go ahead.
You jumped in again. 3, 2, 1.
Bovine manure.
That's the polite way to say it. And I tell you what.
That's how I roll, Mr. Beasley.
I'm going to complete the picture as well. So,
yeah, come on, Craig.
Who wants to count me in?
Go on, Craig. I'll count you in.
Go on then.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Bullshit! The real oomph behind it, you know.
I like the double. You went for double, and I like
double,
that.
Yeah. And Mr. B has said media are making up shit again. Yes, they certainly are. Manny just swear. Manny's too polite to swear. I tell you what, What I'm going to do, we're going to come back in a second, and we are going to discuss the rest of the football pyramid, including, get ready for it, your Kidderminster Harriers news as well. I've said it right this time. I didn't spill my words. But I tell you what, I'll play a little video from somebody else who doesn't swear as well. And she's going to just tell us a little bit more about our link, the partnership with TalkSport.
This podcast is sponsored by Sky Sports, proud partners of the TalkSport Fan Network, where you can watch over 1,500 matches this season. With Marco Rose at the helm and the Cherries pushing for glory, there's no better time to watch us in even more Premier League games this season with Sky Sports. And the best bit, you can watch more of our Premier League matches live on Sky Sports than anywhere else this season. Sky Sports proudly sponsor the TalkSport Fan Network. Search Sky Sports today to watch the Premier League live on Sky Sports.
Come and do the bullshit for everybody. Come on. Come on, don't be shy. Don't be shy. No, she don't want to. There we are. That's disappointing.
If that was your daughter, Craig, then she's got a really good head on her shoulders.
No, he wasn't the daughter. It's the wife, that one. So yes, very, very nicely spoken. And she makes me want to watch it. There we go. See, Mr. B is signing up to Sky Sports because of the missus. There we are. Keep it to that, though, Steve. Let's move on with the rest of the news. And, of course, Rodri, pivotal for Spain, pivotal for España in winning the World Cup. I just wanted to say that again, Manny, sorry. But City have turned down a 55 million bid from Barcelona for Rodri. So, Manny, I'm going to start with you on this one. I think this fee's a little bit low, don't you?
Not really. Let's bear in mind that this chap was subject to a dreadful knee operation, which ruled him out for a good chunk of the season, and both City and the Spanish national team missed him. We also have to consider his age. He is, getting on a little bit. We've got to consider, Craig, that when it comes to certain, players who are subject to transfers, a lot of things are considered, basically. It's like you take a look at their age. He's just turned 30, of course. I think he celebrated his birthday during the World Cup. So you've also got to consider how many years he may have left at the top level. So why should Barcelona or Real Madrid feel that they would have to pay a little bit more for him, for a certain player who, there's no guarantee that he's going to last for a lot longer. People look at players' injury records and make these decisions as well. And cruciate ligament injuries to central midfielders is no joke. We've seen many good central midfielders fall victim to that over the years. Rodri is no different. So, City have already, strengthened their stock by making sure they got Elliot Anderson. And the latest we can confirm is that they've also agreed to sell the Dutch international Tijani Reinders to Al Qadsiya in Saudi Arabia. So there might be, still a place for Rodri in their squad. Maybe that's another reason why they don't want him to leave. And if they know that if he leaves, they lose his leadership. But he was also a big part of that team that won the treble, and I think they still might need his experience. But there's also an understanding that maybe he doesn't have very much long left in the game, and City might probably feel as though they want to extract more from him. Now, in a season or two, his value could decrease, and that would be a good, fee for at which to sell him. In fact, City had already not too long ago sold Ilkay Gundogan to Barcelona, only for Gundo to come back for one more season. and I don't quite remember the price for which that transaction took place. But again, it's a sensitive issue. This, especially when you're dealing with a player with his injuries, and I think Barcelona and Real, who are both in for him, are going to have to really make a decision here as to whether or not they feel that he is worth the money. And is it really just because of the World Cup tax? We'll have to see. So I think City have a right to, refuse the offer because they're the ones who do have a right to set the price. But City might also have to be very careful in terms of making sure that Rodri stays fit. So we're going to have to see how this pans out further, and there is still some time. We could see an improved offer from one of the Classico clubs for him, and then we'll see how that works out. And obviously, Steve saying that he thought he'd gone already. Now, this is an example, Steve, of how certain protracted transfers can make you think they're over, but then they're not quite over. And obviously, Reinder's only being there for one season. I wouldn't necessarily say that, they thought much of him, but, let's not forget that he was there under Guardiola. Guardiola has now left, and now Maresca's coming. I think Maresca has sort of, taken a look at him and decided, what, he might be surplus to requirements at this particular point in time. Maybe not the type of player I'd like in my City 11, so you've got to consider that. And if it's a way to, increase money for City so that they don't run the risk of falling foul of SCR themselves, it works out well. But with Rodri, I don't think this is the last of it. We might hear more in the coming days.
Dylan, I've been looking at Rodri's stats. He had a very, very good World Cup. Like Manny says, he is 30 years old. He's suffered a bad injury. He's only played 24 games in the Premier League over the last 2 seasons, but a lot of people and a lot of what I saw from Man City fans is that they actually blamed that they lost out on the title down to the loss of Rodri. Do you feel that Man City can get a little bit more for him at this point in time, considering the World Cup's just been and gone?
I do. I think I'm a little bit more positive around the feeling of Rodri and his sale than perhaps Manny is. I think you're looking at a player from a business standpoint of view. But like you said, he's only played 24 games in the last Premier League season, and his career in recent years has been burdened by injury. But he's coming off the back of a brilliant World Cup. So I think for Man City to cash in on him now, I think would make a lot of sense, especially given that he's just turned 30. And you won't get a price anywhere near this for Rodri again until he would probably, if he stayed at City, would probably run out his contract and run out on a free. Not run out per se, that sounds bad, but walk out on a free. So for Barcelona, I completely understand this as well. Playing at the World Cup, they were able to play Rodri deeper, which freed up Pedri and allowed him to play further forward, doing what he does best with the ball at his feet, driving forward and creating chances. And if Barcelona can set up their midfield with Rodri next to their own Pedri, that is obviously a key to success, as it showed for Spain at the World Cup. Man City have already started rebuilding their midfield. We're going to talk about Rangers more in a bit, but they've obviously already signed Elliot Anderson for an eye-watering amount of money, and they're about to sign Ayoub Bouadi from Lille as well for around 85 to 100 million pounds. So it's not a cheap rebuild. It never is with Manchester City, is it really? But I can understand in a year where they've got to get rid of a few aging players and they're looking to rebuild this midfield under Enzo Maresca, getting rid of Rodri now. Why still get a good fee for him? I still feel they could potentially get another 10 to 15 million pounds for him. The more you can get out of him, the more they will, because City, as they like to sell, are quite smart when they do this. So for Barcelona, even though he's 30, I do understand it. He'll still be good for them potentially in a slower league that is less physically demanded, which will put less emphasis on his injury form. And for Man City as well, they've already got players coming through and they've got players coming out as well. So I understand this from everyone's point of view. Obviously, Rodri able to go back to his home nation in Spain. And it was such a saga. I thought he was absolutely certain to go to Real Madrid. All of a sudden, they're not willing to cough up the money. Barcelona are, and it seems more likely that he will end up there now, and Real Madrid are going to be left a bit stranded in the market. So it's been a really interesting saga, but I do think by this time next week, we will see Rodri being confirmed as a Barcelona player.
And this also, just briefly, Craig, I'm really sorry to cut in, sort of segues back into the Tyler Adams issue when it was rumoured that he would be targeted by Newcastle. Now, again, you were basically saying that with Eddie Howe gone and Matthias Jasler coming in, that club is now going to be in serious need of a rebuild, and they don't really have any proven Premier League players. You will also...
There's a gremlin in the computer.
Manny has... We lost Manny there.
Stopped for a second. We hopefully will have him back at any moment now, but they are the perfect still as well, isn't it? Yes, I think Manny hasn't frozen, unfortunately. Let it go, let it go. I tell you what, whilst we're waiting for Manny, Rodri could do a Trent, go on a free. Do you remember that, Dylan? Oh, I can't hear you, Dylan.
I don't know why my mic was muted. I didn't even put that then. That's the StreamYard stitching me up. No, I've got no idea who Trent is. I've got no idea who he is. I've got no recollection of him ever playing for anyone. I've never even heard of a player called Trent, so I've got no idea who he's talking about. Sorry, Craig.
There we are. Moving straight on. The movie's straight on. I think Manny might be coming back here. I can't see him, though, at this moment in time. So, here he is. There you are, mate.
Apologise. The worst part is, Mr. B might have said it. It wasn't necessarily gremlins, mate, but every now and then around about this time in my neck of the woods, I'm subject to someone, coming in and just, mucking everything up in terms of connectivity. But I always come back. Now, as I was saying about Tyler Adams, you will remember, Craig, that he has had his own share of injuries over the years. And there is also going to be a question of how many games you can necessarily get from him. And while he was injured, you were struggling to sort of replace him in the lineup. You had some issues as to who you could possibly play there. Lewis Cook obviously was playing there alongside Alex Scott, but Tyler Adams' absence would have hurt you quite a bit. And so this is another reason why sometimes when it comes to certain players who have injury records, if this is an opportunity for clubs to get a good fee for said players, rather than take a chance on them not being available for a whole season, then invariably it will mean that clubs might have to consider that and maybe bite the bullet. And that will also depend as well on how much Newcastle were going to ask for Tyler. If they weren't going to offer you a good price for him, then you'd be perfectly within your right to say no. But anything like about 35 or 40 million, I'm not too sure you would necessarily want to, turn that down. He's not an Alex Scott or even a Lewis Cook, someone who would necessarily be the first choice, but he does provide an option. But if he has injury issues, you can always make those decisions. And as is often said, it's nothing personal. It's just business. And sadly, that's the way a lot of clubs might have to operate. So you can see the similarities between the Rodri and Adams situations.
Yes, definitely. I tell you what, let's go on to the next player. And of course, it was mentioned, Man City have agreed to sell Rounders to Al-Qadsiya. So, yes. Dylan, what do you make of this?
I think this is fair enough. For me personally, I never really rated Rangers. I think he had a good start to the season, good couple months around August and September, and never really settled into Man City from there. I remember his debut against Wolves. I think he put on a man of the match performance there. So apologies to Harry for bringing that one back up, because that did really start to be the beginning of the end for Wolves, how easily they were tore apart by Man City that day. But look, Rangers, I think he had a great season with AC Milan 2 years ago. I can understand why City wanted him in the first place, but clearly Maresca has looked at him and said, unfortunately, you just don't fit my system. And obviously with Saudi, as soon as there's any whiff of a player of perhaps Rangers quality wanting to go, off he goes. We're looking at Al-Qadsiya as well. They're a team who've had some notable players down the years. You might recognise the names like Nacho Fernandez, former Real Madrid captain, or Julian, I'm going to hope I'm saying it right, Quiñones. He featured for Mexico at the World Cup and played really well for them. So they are, you might not recognise the name, but they are a Saudi team with pedigree. So from a player standpoint, as well as the millions he will be making there, is going to be a positive move for him. But for Man City, like I said, they've done their due diligence. They're about to sign Ayub Buwadi. They've already got Anderson through the door to go along with a host of other talented midfielders that they've already got. So Rodri and Reinders leaving and Anderson and Buwadi in, I think that's generally a pretty good deal and good business by Man City as they continue to rebuild their midfield.
100%. I agree with you on that. And to be honest, I think that his playing time would be very severely limited next season. Bayern Munich is supposedly linked with Brentford's Thiago. I tell you what, I'd like us to be linked with him because he's very good. Maybe that'll get you back for taking our Dongo off us. But there we are. Here we are. Jed Spence is supposedly off to Inter Milan. So Tottenham are in the final stages of negotiations with Inter over the sale of Jed Spence. Of course, Jed Spence was a bit of a surprise addition to Thomas Tuchel's squad, but he justified being there throughout the whole tournament, in my honest opinion. I think he was one of our players of the tournament. Inter made an offer to Spurs in talks on Wednesday morning worth £25.6 million. Talks have accelerated today between the two clubs over a deal that could be worth up to £30 million. So, Manny, do you think this makes sense? Is Spence going to go to Milan and leave your hated rivals?
I think it would be a good move for him. Obviously, the club see him as a replacement for Denzel Dumfries, who moved to Real Madrid not too long ago. And obviously with Spence, they know that they're going to get someone who's pretty decent on both flanks. But being right-footed, I would imagine that the Inter Milan coach would prefer to play him on that right back or right wing back position, and he wouldn't look out of place. In fact, this actually would be a good move for him to maybe develop himself. He's not going to become the new Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'm not too sure he's the best at set pieces, but he certainly acquitted himself well. I wouldn't go so far necessarily to say that he was one of England's players at the tournament. I mean, that's being a little bit, redundant, but he certainly did well when he was called. Although it has to be said that we selected very poorly in the right-back position, to the extent that at one stage we had Ezri Konsa filling in at right-back. And it was appropriate since he was given the number 2 jersey, but, he was selected as a centre-back who could play at right-back, not as a specialist right-back per se. It is a good move for him if he can make it happen. I believe Inter Milan will be, of course, playing in Europe in the Champions League as Serie A winners. So he'll have a chance to, continue to realise his European ambitions, having played in the Champions League last season with Spurs. And it could be definitely a good move for him and a chance for Spurs to recoup some money for the sales, for the purchases they've made. I mean, they've been throwing money like crazy, and recouping some money would be good. I'm surprised that, they're only accepting up to 30 million quid for him. It should, in my opinion, go up to maybe 35 or something like 40. So it's a steal for Inter Milan, especially when you consider that, as a friend of mine would say to me, Italian clubs are a little bit, tight when it comes to money. And I think Mr. B says it might be a little bit of madness not letting him go. They already have Pedro Porro, who is the specialist right back, and they often use Spence as a wrong-footed left back, as it were. But I'm pretty sure that they've got a decent replacement lined up. They do have the former Liverpool captain Andrew Robertson joining, and I know that Dylan was fit to be tied with that particular piece of news. I couldn't understand why Spurs would want to go in for him personally. He would have been better off going back to Scotland maybe and just winding his career down. But it is what it is. And I think this will be a really good deal for Spence. It'll be a good deal for Inter Milan. And if I were a Tottenham fan, I'd be saying if we have to let him go, we should be getting more money for him. And I'm not a Tottenham fan, so I say good for me either way. I don't have to come up against him in the North London derby.
And Dylan, of course, Jude Bellingham's benefited from playing overseas. Harry Kane's benefited from playing overseas. Could Jed Spence go in that same direction, that he's really going to benefit from this move, or do you think Italy's possibly not the right destination?
No, I think I could definitely see Jed Spence flourishing at Inter Milan. Selfishly, from a Liverpool point of view, we are crying out for fullback depth at the minute. I would have loved us to be all over this type of deal. I'm a big fan of Jed Spence being able to offer an option at right back and at left back. In terms of Inter Milan going in for a deal, they were really keen on Marco Palestra, the Italian wing back, before Chelsea ended up signing him. So they were clearly in the market for a wing back this summer, and now they've been able to land one. I would say Jed Spence is able to operate as both. If you need him as a wing back, able to come forward and defend well when he's home, then I think they've got a perfect player to do that. Or if you wanted to play him as an out-and-out right back and use him more defensively and not trust him as much to go forward, I think he'll do an equally good job at that. I think he's a terrific player. He's had a really interesting career at Tottenham. When we saw him join from Nottingham Forest all those years ago, under Antonio Conte, it was clear the Italian wasn't keen on him at all. Loaned him out to teams like Rennes in France, but then went on loan to Genoa, so he's already got a bit of Serie A experience.
Yes.
And they absolutely loved him at Genoa. He was absolutely terrific there. And he was able to come back to Tottenham, get a look into that side after getting some games in Genoa, and the rest is history in terms of his Tottenham career. I think this is a really good fee for him as well, around £30 million. Like Manny said, I do agree with him. Italian teams can be quite tight. That's why the saga around Curtis Jones to Inter Milan has lasted so long as well. But back onto Jed Spence, I think this is a bit of a sorry loss for Tottenham. They have brought in some excellent defenders this summer, but in the fullback areas, I do worry who's going to be covering Pedro Porro now. But then again, no Europe for Tottenham, so maybe that's not a huge concern for them. And they have got midfielders who could potentially be filling in at right back if they need them to. But for Jed Spence, I think he's obviously had a great World Cup. I agree with you, Craig. I think he was one of England's best players. So going off to Inter Milan, a league he's already got a bit of experience in, a culture that he's already experienced in as well, and in the best team in the country and one of the best teams in Europe, I think he could definitely flourish here, and definitely by the time Euro 2028 rolls around, establish himself as England's starting right back or maybe even left back.
There we are. Well, Jed Spence is off to Milan, but Chelsea have got a sale on, and Chelsea bargains. As you can see, some of the costings there. I think I was just watching Manny. I think has just gone and taken the rubbish out, which is possibly what these players are. But Dylan, is any of these any good? Really?
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, Greg, should we walk through the list one by one, start at the top and work our way down?
Yeah,
so
Tom's just said, "Where's Reece when you need him?"
Yeah, he'd have definitely had some comments to make about most of these players. So start with Nicholas Jackson. For me, I never thought he was that bad at Chelsea. I thought he offered a great relationship with Cole Palmer, and 2 years ago struck up a real good relationship with him on the pitch. Unfortunately, they didn't fancy him and loaned him out to Bayern Munich last year, where he played back up to Harry Kane. That's probably why Bayern Munich are after Igor Thiago, unfortunately Mr. B. But Thiago is way too good to be playing back up to Kane, in my opinion. So for Nicholas Jackson, I do see him leaving Chelsea, but for 65 million, I can't see that personally. And the same goes for the player beneath him, Malo Gusto, who I expect to play a second string role to Palestra this season after Chelsea spent around 60 million euros on him. Gusto for 75 million. Has the market gone mad? This is a decent player, okay, but defensively can be really suspect sometimes and can be a bit injury prone. 75 million, I think, is awful, and I think he's worth about a third of that at around 25 million pounds in this market. If we move on to Disasi now as well, 25 million plus add-ons. He's heavily linked with a move to Crystal Palace. For me, he impressed at West Ham in the second half of last season. Unfortunately, they did go down. But after spending the first 6 months of last season in Chelsea's bomb squad, he wasn't being utilised, frozen out of the club, playing in their under-21s, then got a move to West Ham and impressed there. So if he does end up at Crystal Palace, I think he'll be a great option for them and some valuable Premier League experience. And also another French centre-half that they took a gamble on that hasn't worked out. Benoit Badiashile has completed the move to Napoli. He's going to be over there, and I've got no doubt he'll probably be a decent Serie A defender. We've seen lots of pretty middling to average Premier League players like Scott McTominay when he left before he became unbeatable at Napoli. He's gone. Badiashile will go to Napoli, and I think he'll be okay for him. But this, like Mr. B has said in chat, Enzo Fernandez, £120 million. Like he says, it is laughable. It is a laughable thing. Enzo Fernandez, I think, on his day can be a great player and showed that against England in the semi-finals. But I do think he's dirty. I think he's rash. I think he's very aggressive midfielder in terms of off the ball and on the ball work. And I think 120 million for him is a much, much overpayment. And if Chelsea get anywhere near the money they bought him for, I'd be very surprised.
I wouldn't pay 12 quid for him.
I think a lot of people would share the same sentiments as you, Craig. I don't think he's worth. I think maybe he's worth half of that, and that's a big maybe.
Yes. He's not one of my favourite players, but Liam Delap and Mark Guéhi as well.
Yeah, really interesting as well. I think Delap. Look, it was just as we discussed last week when we saw Delap linked to the likes of Coventry and Everton. He was just a step too far. His first year in the Premier League, really decent return for Ipswich. I think it was around 10 to maybe 12 goals. But unfortunately, the step up to Chelsea was just too big for him. And he really failed to impress last year. So if he was able to get to a team like Everton, like Coventry, maybe another mid-table team like Crystal Palace, Sunderland, Fulham, I think he could do well. But 50 million, you're joking. I don't think he's a £50 million player any stretch of the week. And the same goes for Mark Guéhi. He got loaned out to Sunderland last year, got recalled after one game when they were worried about their striker depth, when they already had 3 strikers at the club. He barely got a kick for Chelsea last year. And now they're saying we're going to sell him for £25 million. It's rubbish. So for Chelsea, I understand trying to sell so many players. They've bought a lot. They also now need to shift a lot as per the last ownership model or the last transfer policy. But some of the price tags I'm looking at here, Craig, I think I've summed it up pretty well when I say that some of these price tags are just obscene.
Yes, I think, to be honest, they're all obscene, actually. The only one I would say is probably not that obscene is Axel Disasi, who I think could do quite a job. But the rest of them, Enzo Fernandez, Chelsea are having a laugh, and I did make a joke, Manny, when you disappeared for a moment. I said that you were taking the rubbish out, and it looks like Chelsea are taking their rubbish out this summer.
Well, I mean, I'm not so sure you could necessarily call Enzo Fernandez rubbish, and as much as I despise him too, for various reasons. There is no doubt that he is a really, really good player. And, he was actually moved a little bit forward to play the number 10 role. And I thought that move suited him. I think his days of being more of a holding midfielder are sort of now a little bit gone. He was never, ever going to, do that position justice when Argentina played. Lionel Scaloni just, defecated the bed with his lineup. But in addition to some of these players in question, there was talk about, Nicholas Jackson joining Aston Villa on loan because, Unai Emery, of course, worked with him when he was at Villarreal, and he remembers how, outstanding he was. A big part, of course, of that Villarreal team that won the 2021 Europa League, beating my Arsenal team and Manchester United in the process. So Emery has this ability, I always say, to turn water into wine. And he's, of course, already done business with Chelsea, having secured Alejandro Garnacho on a loan. There is a sort of might be an obligation to buy at the end of the season, but if Emery does get the best out of him and succeed where he couldn't quite do so with the likes of Jadon Sancho, who was, of course, on Chelsea at loan, then that would be a pretty good piece of business. I just don't know if he'll get Jackson on the permanent transfer, but he is looking to get him on loan as a striking option. I just don't know if he can, make it happen. Malo Gusto, of course, to be honest, I don't really know what people might necessarily see in him. He's a backup right back for the France national team behind Jules Koundé. And I don't even know what he would offer. Disasi, 25 million for a player who was, of course, on Chelsea's infamous bomb squad. If anyone wants to sign him, good luck to him. Good luck to them, I should say. I don't think we're going to see too much of him. And I would also agree with you and Dylan that 50 million for Liam Delap is a bit of a Mickey take, and I don't see any club, not even Tottenham, wanting to waste that kind of money on signing him for that sort of a fee. So you can see what Chelsea are trying to do. They're trying to sort of, I would say they are kind of taking the Mickey, but they're also clearly in need of trying to raise some funds in order to make sure that they satisfy the outlay they had for some of their recent, acquisitions. But they're completely going about it the wrong way. Of course, if there is one club that absolutely loves signing Chelsea supposed rejects, it's my Arsenal. And we do it. We're guaranteed to sign a Chelsea reject every season. I wouldn't be surprised if, we ended up going for at least one of these players. It could very well be Jackson. It won't be Delap. Maybe it'll be a Markham Giroud. If we're in need of a centre back, we might as well be desperate and go for Axel Disasi. Although I think Disasi, a lot of people can agree that Disasi is a bit of a disaster waiting to happen. But all I can say is good luck getting any kind of a fee with these players, Chelsea. But the sad part is we know that Chelsea will sell at least one of these players for the money they want, because you know how they say there's a sucker born every minute, and there's always going to be a fool who will be parted easily from his money. There's always going to be one. More often than not, voice of experience, it's us, Arsenal.
Well, I think, to be honest, Chelsea are having a laugh. So, yes, Chelsea bargains. Definitely not bargains, rip-offs, more like. Let's go to Hull, because they're a new club in the Premier League. Of course, promoted from the Championship in strange circumstances. Of course, beat Millwall in their semi-final, and then had a game against Middlesbrough after thinking that they was going to be playing Southampton. And they've signed Nobel Mendy from Rayo Vallecano for a club record fee. Of course, Rayo Vallecano, Andoni Iraola's former club. So, Dylan, what do you know about Mendy, and do you think this is a good signing?
Yeah, I think it's probably a decent signing. Look, Hull are going to have a really, really tough time coming up. They've still got, for me, a championship level team, if I may say. But look at Mendy. He's a very big physical presence. Rayo Vallecano are a very physical team. That's how they got to the Europa Conference League final last year, before unfortunately, from their point of view, losing to Crystal Palace. But signing Nobel Mendy, club record fee, I think it's around £21 million, and they've had a very, very busy transfer window. They've brought in the likes of Zolakis, I think I'm saying that right, from Olympiacos. I believe they've also signed a couple goalkeepers after Panda left. They've got Jack Butland, who is set to be their number one next year. So for Hull, I think they're doing as best as they probably can do. They've got very wealthy owners. And I'm not sure if anyone's seen this, but on their Twitter, Hull's owner did put a list out of players saying, we are trying to work our hardest to get some players through the door. And he put a list of flags from players that they've been linked with and put a percentage as to how much they've been done. Has an owner ever done that? I don't think so. So we're clearly a very erratic owner. So for Mendy coming through, I think perhaps maybe after posting his flag, some fans were able to sniff out that it was the Senegalese centre-half joining, like they probably will do for a few more signs that are yet to come. So for Hull, I think this is a decent deal, but unfortunately, I think we could look back on this and say they've spent 20 million. Could they have done that elsewhere? As I do think they'll be promptly returning to the Championship next year. But if he's going to be the cornerstone of them staying up, then maybe they can turn that 20 million into 100 million if they want to try that next year. But that is a big if. So for me, I think this is a decent signing, but I can't see Hull doing that well in the Premier League this year.
They really do have a bat on their hands. So, yeah, decent signing, but I think they're going to have a real battle to stay up. But I tell you what, Manny, I've been saving this one for you. Galatasaray is showing interest in Arsenal's Martinelli. Can you see this one happening?
we're trying to make it happen, but sadly there are going to be some, obstacles in this. And we've also been looking to sell another Gabriel Jesus, to Napoli, but then there have been some setbacks to that deal. The thing about the players that we have and the players that we're trying to sell, Craig, is that they have this belief that now that we've won the league, fortuitously, I will say again and again, and I'm not going to get tired of saying it, we seem to be, on the up again, and they want to be a part of that. But all these players are doing is handicapping us in terms of not being able to give us the funds that we would like. And, to answer this question that Steve asked earlier, we are trying to sell him, Steve, for anywhere from 35 to maybe 40 million quid. The only problem is I'm not too sure the Galatasaray themselves are willing to, budge on that. And so, again, you have a player like Martinelli who was with us in the academy, who's developed with us and would be the type of pure profit signing that would bring about a cash windfall for the club while also getting his wages off the books and free funds for us to, use for selling players. But I can only hope that the deal goes through, because Martinelli, although he did have one good season under Arteta, his best time with us was when Unai Emery was a manager and playing him as a sort of a second off-the-shoulder striker. As a touchline-hugging winger, he has simply been, pretty poor. And as much as I would always back a player who has been very ill-treated by a manager, including especially a manager like Arteta, who has this weird, fantasy, for want of a more genteel word, about making his players more versatile. We've also got to be honest and say that it's a player's responsibility to, look to improve himself. And I think it's fair to say that Martinelli has failed to do that. And now he's at a crossroads in his career where, if he stays at Arsenal any longer, he might not really realise his full potential. I know that Ancelotti took him to the World Cup and used him as more of a backup striker, but he's just not a winger. And the longer he stays at the club, the more he's going to deteriorate. So I just hope we can get the deal across the line. I only hope that we can get a good fee for him. But there are going to be some obstacles. And this is just another highlight, really, Craig, of how poor we've been in the transfer market when it comes to either trying to buy players or even sell players. And now, of course, there's talk about us trying to still get Ezri Konsa because we need a centre-back. Once again, I think Unai Emery is going to tell us to go, lay an egg. There's no way he's going to want to help us. And he's definitely not going to want to, part with his vice-captain, an exceptionally pivotal and important member of his squad, right when Villa are about to enjoy another return to the Champions League. So, we're the architects of our own problems, and I don't think we deserve any sympathy.
Well, I'll tell you what, there we are. There's Manny's thoughts on this one. But Lukaku has gone to Fenerbahce. Does that open up Jesus to Napoli? Dylan, what do you make of Lukaku moving to Turkey, and then could Jesus go to Napoli off the back of that?
Yeah, so Romelu Lukaku has had a really tumultuous post-Chelsea record-breaking transfer career. He obviously flopped at Chelsea for all that money, then went back to Italy, and he's kind of poked around a few teams from there. Roma, Napoli, I believe AC Milan as well, and maybe returned to Inter as well at some point. I know for certain he's obviously just left Napoli and did have a stint at Roma under Mourinho, I believe. But off to Fenerbahce he goes. It's another team clicked off for Lukaku. I don't think there's an elite striker there anymore, unfortunately. I think his best years were enjoyed at Everton, and that was over 10 years ago now. So perhaps Fenerbahce getting another striker in, and if he returns maybe 10 to 15 goals from this year, I think that's fair enough, and I think that's a decent return for a team who I believe are in the Europa Conference League this year, maybe have European football. And then for Gabi Jesus, if Napoli are taking Lukaku's probably big wages out the door and replacing him with Jesus' likely big wages as well, I think this is a decent replacement for them. He's going to fit into the Italian league style of play, a little bit slower. So with his injury problems, he's probably going to play more. He's probably going to keep up his fitness better and play to a better standard. If, like I said, if we've seen pretty average players in the Premier League, like Scott McTominay before he left to Napoli. And then they've absolutely exploded there. I wouldn't be surprised, even despite his age, if Jesus does the same and has a really good stint in Italian football now. So for all parties, I think this makes a lot of sense. I think Jesus is definitely going to be a better player than Lukaku in this day and age. Like I said, I think Lukaku is well past it, and I don't think there's been a quality player. I think, in all fairness, during Inter Milan's 2020 winning season, I think he had a really good partnership with Lautaro Martinez. But for me, a flashes player, I think he'll do well in Turkey because that's probably about his level. And I do think Jesus will do well for Napoli if he ended up there. So overall, an interesting transfer saga. And I do see it ending with Jesus being a Napoli player by the end of the window.
I only hope you're right, Dylan. But as I said earlier, there has been talk about, Jesus wanting to stay. But then, like I said, if we do get the deal over the line, I'll be a happy chappy. We need to get his wages off the books. You could be right when you say that he could prosper in Italy, but then even that would sort of be his level right now, it has to be said, given his own injuries over the years. Let's see how it pans out. I hope we see the back of it.
Well, I tell you what, guys. Hopefully, Dylan, they're all still here. Because it's the moment they've been waiting for. It's the Kidderminster News, the non-league window. Dylan, I'm going to just hand this straight over to you. You tell us what is going on at Kidderminster Harriers.
So, unfortunately, the National League season kicked off last weekend. That's fortunate, but Kidderminster Harriers stumbled to an embarrassing final loss away at Hornchurch. Hornchurch were also promoted to the National League this season, with Harriers gaining promotion from the playoffs like Harriers did from National League South. They're both back in the league, and Hornchurch absolutely wiped the floor with them. A 3-0 defeat. So Harriers are looking for reinforcements, and they're looking for them quickly, especially in attack. We've recently added, as it says on there, Callum Stewart on loan. I think this is a good signing. There's plenty of strikers come through the door at Harriers, and we've seen lots of, how do I put this lightly, donkey strikers come through who just don't know where the back of the net is. Believe it or not, the player leading our line on Saturday, he actually registered. He played for Gateshead up in the northeast last year and registered no National League goals. So we decided that'd be a great player to bring in. So hopefully, Callum Stewart is going to be a lot better than this. He did make his debut, I believe, against Hornchurch, but failed to have an impact on goal. So hopefully, if he's going to play in a couple of days' time, back at Agborough, back in the West Midlands, against Eastleigh, I think he'd definitely be able to make an impact. So hopefully a sign of better things to come as Harriers look to get away from the relegation battle this year. That is their goal, to be clear. Don't expect any upper mid-table pushes or anything like that. The Kidderminster Harriers will be in a relegation battle, and hopefully Callum Stewart will be the one to lead us out there. We were after one of our best players last year, Riley Reynolds. I had the chance to interview him briefly, and he is a very technical midfielder, very brilliant, only 20 years of age. He was on loan, returned to Notts County, but they want to loan him back out again after they were promoted to League One. However, there's lots of League Two interest, and Barrow, who have just dropped down into the National League, are interested in him. So whether Harriers can get their former wonder kid back, I doubt it. But for now, with Stewart, it's a decent addition. And I think there's still plenty of loan moves to happen for Harriers before the end of the window. So, yeah, we're looking at Tom saying, do we have to talk about last Saturday? Yes, we have to, because that's how the league season started. Some of us were there, Tom. Some of us like to follow our team home and away. Keyword being away there. So we were there. And he's saying Riley Reynolds is coming home. To be clear, this was a player that was born and bred in Nottingham and was on loan at Harriers for 2 seasons. So home, not technically, I don't think, but yeah, it's been a really interesting window for Harriers so far. But unfortunately, their season got off to the worst possible start. So Saturday, against fellow relegation rivals Eastleigh, it's time to really kickstart the season, get back on home turf and get 3 points.
Do you know what? I really do hope that Kidderminster Harriers can get back into the Football League at some point, because I know that you say it's going to be very difficult this season, Dylan, and you know, from being newly promoted, yeah, it's it probably is going to be, but over time, you know, give it another couple of seasons. I really would love to see you back in the Football League. And of course, here is something as well. Matt remembers this. Matt was at this match on this day in 2002. Kidderminster Harriers drew 0-0 at AFC Bournemouth in the Nationwide Division 3, of course, now League 2, in front of 4,771 fans. The Cherries are now an established Premier League side, and we're a step lower. We beat them at home in the season, and that's played for Kiddie. Who posted that? There's a copy of the program as well there. The crests as well. I absolutely love the Kidderminster crest. I really do hope that you do come back into the Football League sooner rather than later. It would be absolutely brilliant. And 4,771. That's the loyal following that we had at AFC Bournemouth back in those days. It's quite some way away from that nowadays, but
I was about to say, yeah, gone are the days where you see anywhere near that number. And if there has, there's something seriously gone wrong. Maybe they've closed off 3 of the stands at Dean Court.
like I said, and albeit it wasn't then, but like I said to on the Sun football show, I turned round to him and I said, we had a 3-sided ground back, in the -17 season. We couldn't fill 3 sides. We couldn't fill the 3 sides that we had. Now it's chocker every single week, which is great. But hopefully, fingers crossed, you can get yourself back in the Football League, Dylan, and build yourself up. And you never know. Hopefully, we can inspire.
We haven't been in the Football League since, I believe, 2005. So
how long?
I think so, yeah, maybe it was that long. So, yeah hopefully it's on the horizon. I would love a Wrexham-style takeover. Instead of Ryan Reynolds coming in, we need to get Hugh Jackman, Deadpool and Wolverine, having 2 teams rivaling in the Football League. I think that would be awesome. But this is fantasy. So if maybe one day when Hugh Jackman responds to my emails, we can get that going. But, yeah, for now, we'll just have to settle for National League.
There we are. If you get Margot Robbie, I'll become a Kidderminster fan. And all you Kidderminster fans, look up JJ Milligan as well. Tom, this isn't an excuse. I had my hair cut, so I couldn't go to Hornchurch. Sorry, guys.
I wish I could have that excuse, Craig.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not going to have that excuse much longer.
No, man.
I just haven't got the choice. It's kind of disappearing. I say it's the M27 that's going straight through it. One way goes off to Southampton, one way goes off to Portsmouth, and Bournemouth's over here, where it's a bit more greener and a bit more pleasant. Anyway, let's move on. Mikel Antonio is being considered by Watford. Oh, sorry. Matt's just put that.
He's done you there.
He has done me. I'm not even going to read it out. If you are listening to this on the audio podcast, you're going to have to watch it on YouTube to actually find out what Matt's put. But yes. Cheers, mate.
Looks as though you've just been pranked, have you, Craig?
Matt's not being very nice to me. I'm going to go cry into a pillow. But Mikel Antonio,
on, you're stronger than that.
He's being considered by Watford. And of course, Mikel Antonio was unfortunately involved in what was a serious accident quite a few years ago now it was. Luckily, made a full recovery. And this, Manny, is going to be a good move for him. He is training with them at the moment. Can he get back to playing week in, week out? Of course, time's not really on his side either.
It's difficult to say. Obviously, I'm glad that he was able to recover from that accident.
Yeah.
I hope that he will, continue to enjoy a full recovery. it is a bit of a step down, but Watford, of course, being in the Championship, he will get plenty more games in the season. 2 cup competitions as well. Don't forget the League Cup and the FA Cup. I think it's a sort of a way of him just trying to, prove in some ways that he can still hack it at a reasonably high level. There was, of course, also talk that a certain Spurs cult hero by the name of Dele Alli was being considered by West Ham of all teams. Now you have these types of reports about certain players potentially being courted by Championship clubs or clubs lower down the pyramid as a means of trying to get their careers back on track. I'm not too sure how the Dele Alli thing would work, but with Antonio, it's an opportunity for him to sort of try and get back to something like his old self. I don't know if he's going to play in the Premier League again. I think those days are definitely, long gone with age and injury having taken their toll. But this could be a challenge for him. He might be up for it, and if he's able to make the most of it, then good for him. I hope it definitely works out.
Yeah, I completely agree. And of course, he was he did sign for a Qatar club earlier on this year, made 4 appearances for them, was at West Ham for 10 years. Prior to that, it was a little bit of a journey, man. I think he spent too long at Reading, honestly. But he did find his feet at Sheffield Wednesday, Forest, and then, of course, West Ham. So hopefully makes a full recovery. Of course, the Qatar League is not particularly the greatest. Hopefully he makes a full recovery and can get back firing on all cylinders. Thomas says, have you got an umbrella, Craig? And yes, he is also known as the Wally with a brolly. Dylan, can Mikel Antonio really impact Watford if they do sign him full time?
I would love Mikel Antonio to come back and make a real impact, but don't get this twisted. This was a life-threatening injury, and it's a miracle that he's even able to think about playing football again. It looks like he went off to Qatar for a few months, got a nice bit of rehabilitation, and got a nice payday for it. But coming back to Watford, I think they've had an all right window. I think the highlight of their window is definitely Jordan Zamora. I think he's going to be a great option for them this season. But I do think Watford are going to struggle. They've had a lot of players leave to sister club Udinese. They've had only a few players arrive from the Italian club. So if Mikel Antonio was to be able to go there, get fit and be an option for him this year, I think that'd be great. And I think that is something the football world would look fondly upon, even if he's playing for a team as low down as Watford. So for him, if he's happy to and he's in the mentality to, I'd say absolutely go for it. But if for Watford, he probably isn't going to be commanding too higher wages, have to be on really decent Premier League wages at West Ham for so many years. So for Watford, I think it can make sense if they're able to keep him fit and not be paying too much to have him. Perhaps he goes on a pay-as-you-play basis, but those type of deals are rare in football nowadays. So I would love to see Mikel Antonio back and playing football. And I think he'd probably do well for Watford if he was fit and able to play. But it's a lot of big ifs involved here, Craig. So I'm not sure whether if we're sat here in a month, maybe even a few weeks' time, saying he's unable to play for Watford, I don't think it'd be a major surprise, unfortunately.
Watford will have a new manager again soon as well, Mr. B says. Mr. B is not a Watford fan, although it does look like a bee or a hornet. He is a Brentford fan, anybody who is interested. Doesn't really like Watford very much. But yes, Mikel Antonio, it would be great to see him, make an impact at some football club. Will it be Watford? Will it be a little bit further down? We'll see. But I guess the main thing is he's still here. That's the main priority. What we're going to do is we're going to speed because we're coming up to the 2-hour mark. So, it's been a long one tonight. We're going to speed through the final couple. Pogba to West Ham. This has come from TalkSport on the Sports Bar with Jason Cundy. Colton Cole suggested Pogba to West Ham. We know he was a fantastic talent, Cole said. Whether he's fulfilled his talent or not, He's won the World Cup, 40k a week in the Championship. Is that something you think, A, would that appeal to West Ham, B, would appeal to him? I don't know whether or not he wants to play in the Championship for one, but he may be short of offers. Yeah, I would take him, Carlton Cole said. I will be perfectly honest, I can't see Pogba even entertaining West Ham in the Championship. Dylan, can you see Pogba even thinking of West Ham?
Absolutely not, no. I'd be really surprised if Paul Pogba even knows what the Championship is, or that West Ham are even part of the Championship, to be honest. I think for Pogba, for me, he's always been a player that people love to fantasize about. If you can get him fit, if you can get him playing like he was at Juventus, he came nowhere near the pinnacles he reached at the Italian club, at Man United for me. And I think during his time at United, I think fans seriously overrated him. Unfortunately, after leaving United, his fitness and his form has really tailed off. Everyone thought he's going to go back to France, going to go to Monaco and re-kickstart his career. Unfortunately, never got fit and never got a good run of games going for Monaco. So to think he'd even consider, after failing at a team like Monaco in his home nation, coming back to England and taking a step down into the Championship with West Ham. For me, this is prime sports bar fodder. Someone who just loves to talk on there, throw out any old guff and see what kind of clips and headlines they can make from it. Because I bet there are some newspapers absolutely loving the idea that Paul Pogba could be a West Ham player and are taking that quote from Carlton Cole and absolutely running with it, doing laps around the London Stadium with it. So maybe Pogba goes to another club. I could definitely see him joining a team in Saudi where he can make a load of money, be injured, barely play, and even when he does play, it's an awful standard. So he's able to do his kick, his flick ups and his step overs, dye his hair whatever colour he fancies. So for me, I do think maybe Pogba's career is coming towards the latter stages now. But do I think he'll ever play in England, let alone a decent level of football ever again? No, I don't think so.
I'll be honest, I think Pogba's agent is probably doing the rounds at the moment and, is trying to flog him off to whoever possibly will take him, hang on, there's a call coming through. Hello? You want to offer Paul Pogba to us? What? Paul Pogba in an AFC Bournemouth shirt? No, sorry, mate, we're not interested. What? You think he's really good? He's won a World Cup? Look, mate, I don't think so. What? He'll take... No, look, we're just not interested. Go away. I don't think this is going to happen. And therefore, we've also got our roving reporter actually just making some comments as well.
Bullshit.
There we are. Thanks to Carl Pilkington for reporting for us from a train somewhere in, I don't know where it is.
Bullshit.
I think that's Russia. So yeah, he'd better be a bit careful over there. Shall we move on? Wan-Bissaka is to get a Premier League lifeline with Villa and Fulham interest. Fulham want $2 million loan deal with an option to buy. Manny, can you see this happening?
I know Aston Villa will definitely want him because they see him as someone who can compete with Matthew Cash, whose error of judgment cost Aston Villa the Super Cup last night. I was doing a watch-along for that, and I'm really delighted that I was able to watch that cracker of a game in Salzburg rather than the war fest at the Emirates Stadium, which, as we know, finished 1-1 and went to penalties. I mean, the less said about that, the better, to be frank. But, this would actually be a really good deal. Someone who knows how to overlap and attack, but also is defensively quite sound. He was an important player for West Ham last season as they, valiantly tried, but just couldn't escape, the tentacles of relegation. He would definitely be a good acquisition for Villa, and Villa would need to sign him. If he goes to Fulham, maybe he'd play quite well over there. But Craig, you know what I've said about Fulham in recent times. They are literally one of the most unambitious clubs in the Premier League today. You would think that they would be a lot eager to try to seriously try and qualify for Europe and maybe enjoy a cup run here and there. But just when we would think that they'd be on the cusp of something amazing, they go and play like absolute rubbish. And it's as if they're, only too fond of mid-table mediocrity. And I know that our resident Brentford supporter, Mr. Jenkins, is not fond of Fulham either. He doesn't like most of the West London clubs or any of the London clubs near his neck of the woods, just to make it crystal clear. But again, he's also a good bloke. He just he's here for the banter, and he gives as good as he gets. And I'd like to see Wan-Bissaka, playing for Fulham. I think he'd definitely improve them and the carrot of Champions League football. I mean, how can you turn that down? But we've seen players turn down European football for supposed stability, as it were. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up becoming, another one which just doesn't really materialise. And he goes to another club. But if he can secure a loan move, good for him. He's obviously, Premiership proven, Premiership ready, and needs to be playing in the top division. And these two clubs would be good options for him. But being slightly biased, I'd go for Villa over Fulham any day of the week. I mean, working with Unai Emery and playing in the Champions League? Yes, please.
There we go. There we are. Well, I'll tell you what, let's skip to this bit of news. And this is really, really, really interesting. Leicester City have got their own wonder kid. He's actually being compared to Jude Bellingham, of all people. That's quite high praise. Louis Page is wanted by Manchester United, and Sky Sports News reported this week that United are interested in bringing Page to Old Trafford. He is 18 years old, and he would be keen on the move to Old Trafford this summer. Dylan, I can see this happening.
Yeah, me too. I think Leicester obviously are going through really tough times at the minute, and they obviously already sold one of their starlets in Jeremy Monga to Manchester City, despite how heavily linked he was with a link to a move to Arsenal. So it's no surprise that teams are starting to pick up on how good Leicester's academy is, and it's no surprise, given how good their training facilities are, that they're able to develop such brilliant wonder kids like this. So if Louis Page was to end up at Old Trafford and then potentially get loaned out again, or even feature for their under-21s for a little period of time, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think United would be willing to pay the money, a homegrown player as well, certainly a talented player. The links to Jude Bellingham don't come easily, so it's clearly a decent price tag. But Russell Martin has said he doesn't want to sell. So if Leicester don't want to lose out on other key players, and I'd expect a player of his talent to be able to feature in League One and probably do really well from this year, I expect Leicester to go back up to the Championship, whether that's through the automatics or through the playoffs in League One. So if he's going to play a key role in that, and Russell Martin expects to have him around, I think maybe he could stay, and if they could convince him for just one more year. If he ends up being absolutely brilliant for Leicester in League One, then they can drum up his price tag even more by the time they get to the Championship. But let's see what Leicester want to do. But like you said, if he ends up the end of the window as a Manchester United player when they simply offer too much money for an 18-year-old attacker, I could definitely see that happening. But there's definitely a talented player here. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch him develop over the next few years.
100%. And yeah, sorry, Chris, if you are watching, I can't, see you being able to keep hold of him. Reese has turned up, better late than never. He said greetings. Reese, where have you been, says Tom. He said, fixing the world. And then Tom has said, try and fix Chelsea after you've done, Reese. So, yes, Reese, you might have to watch back. I think, it was probably about an hour and 45 minutes in. It's a long one tonight. That's how you've still caught us. And we rip apart your window so far, and basically the players that you're selling. So yes,
we all firmly agreed, Reece, that Liam Delap was worth £50 million, and Enzo Fernandez is worth 120 million. Is that the conclusion we came to, Craig?
Let me find out. Oh, hang on. Our Rover reporter's back on the case.
Bullshit.
There we are. Can't use that enough, can I? I tell you what, last two, Ipswich have bid for Palacios, knocked back by Leverkusen. Club has rejected Town's £17 million offer. So, yes, that is Ipswich Town. Of course, Gary O'Neill there. It's a big bid. It's a big bid. It's a big risk. Ipswich, I think, going to be quite strong next season. I think, not strong in the sense that they're going to do anything at the top end of the table, but I think they're going to be, battling out to stay up. Because bouncing back at the first time of asking, it will be very, very interesting to see what they do. Yes, Reese, you missed the whole Chelsea section. You're going to have to watch it back now and leave all the comments in the comment section. I'll be here next week for the Eden Hazard romanticism section. I'm looking forward to it. And let's just go to the last one. Romero set for Atletico move. Romero's exit will signal a new era at Spurs. Of course, popular man in England, as we can tell you. If you're not living in England, Romero is probably the football playing version of syphilis. Dylan, is it time for Romero to move on?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, is this the most obvious transfer that has ever happened? You've taken one of the most dirty players and most red card prone, foul prone players I think I've ever seen grace the Premier League. And he's going to one of the dirtiest teams in Europe in Atletico Madrid under the crafty, Dick Dastardly like Diego Simeone. I think this is a move. No one likes Diego Simeone, I don't think. So for me, I think this is a very obvious transfer. Of course, we saw a bit of paper talk going on, saying Inter Milan were ready to line up a bid. We also, surprisingly from the Athletics, say that Arsenal had made inquiries into his signing. Could you imagine what would have happened if Christian Romero was pulling on an Arsenal top next season? That would have been absolutely crazy. But like we discussed last week, that was just all paper talk. There was no way Tottenham were ever going to sell to Arsenal. So he is off to Atletico Madrid. Tottenham have already done their due diligence. They've signed lots of good defenders this summer. Marco Senesi obviously being the main one behind Jan-Paul van Hecke, and being able to extend the contract of Mickey van der Ven is a big positive for them as well. So for Tottenham, lots of defensive change. Obviously already sold Vuskovic to Brighton for around £45 million. But Romero is off. So for all us English people, I think we're very glad to be seeing him leave. For everyone else, will probably be wondering, why do they hate him so much? For that, we could spend another hour talking about. But I've got no doubts he'll do really well for Simeone, who will just love how horrible, nasty, and how much he loves ankle breaking. So I've got no doubts he'll do well back in Spain.
Diego Simeone's son is also particularly horrible as well. Yes. And it's surprising that he might be ending up in Spain, of course. He likes spending time with world champions. Of course, he isn't one anymore. Reece said, I hope
he'll always be a world champion, Craig. Enough.
Yes. Manny is the voice of reason here. You can tell. Whilst there is some Argentina bashing going on, Manny just brings us back to But yes, he hopes, Reece hopes he takes Enzo with him as well. Yes, I think the whole of the Premier League does. Although it'll be funny to hear what Enzo Fernandez gets flung towards him during the season. Who do Ipswich think they are? They tried buying loads of players before in the Prem. Didn't work for them. Went down. It could happen again. Gary O'Neill. Mr. B said, never been sent off for Argentina. And actually, Tom, you've just got a couple of moments to say what would you compare Romero to? What is he the football equivalent of? This could go all wrong, couldn't it, Dylan? To be perfectly honest, I've just opened a can of worms. Manny, final bit. Romero set for the Atletico move. Is it good for the player?
It should be good for him because at least, given that he was one of the main culprits in Argentina's antics during the World Cup, especially with the Falkland Islands banner, I think English, fans are going to be glad to see the back of him. I think as good a servant as he's been for Spurs, he was captain during their Europa League.
Oh, there we are. We've got another gremlin in the system. Dial up.
Again.
Yes. There we are. I was gonna say you might have to give Mark at Touchpoint Telecoms a call for the fibre. Oh,
not again.
Yep. I mean, obviously, Mark from Touchpoint Telecoms can't really work, but it's worth a shout, I suppose. And look, there was actually talk about him saying that he wanted to stay in England because he was settled in London, and his family were happy there. And of course, there would have been talk about him possibly doing a Sol Campbell and joining Arsenal, given that we are short of centre backs at the moment. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. For Argentina, he's an absolute legend, but at club level, the man's a walking disaster waiting to happen. And he will be at home in Spain with his fellow Argentinians. There's a huge contingent over there. And of course, a certain Diego Simeone is not one who will continue to receive Christmas cards from David Beckham. Not now, nor ever, I might add. It'll be a good move for him, and I hope he resurrects his career. And as long as he's far away from Arsenal as possible, it's all the better. And yeah, he needs to leave England, Craig, and I'm just I'm glad to see him back.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there we go. That is the transfer news. It's been a bumper one. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. So yes, it's been a very, very long one. Reese has asked, do you want his hotspot? I think you might just have to stretch a while, mightn't it, Manny, to get to you?
Yeah, listen, I've already got a hotspot connection, Reese, so don't worry about me. The only issue I have with my net connection is that at a certain point in time, you have the external forces coming in and trying to, muck things up. And I can also tell when things are badly affected. I would have to use my own hotspot. But all's well that ends well. Don't worry about it.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. You've always got a way with words, mate. And a dirty manager coaching a dirty player about right. And Manny's favourite RG is Emi Martinez. There we go.
Yeah. With Lionel Messi a close second.
And there we are. To be honest, I don't like any of them. That's me.
Why?
Not even Senesi. Mate, he played for you.
No,
and did some good things for
I
you.
do like Senesi and I do like Sola. There we are. To be honest, I'm not against Argentine people. Honestly, we've had some really nice Argentinians on this show. So, yes, apologies all round. Just don't like your football team. Your national football team. So, of course, that rounds it up for another week. We are back next week. Dylan, again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm guessing, are you going to be back next week for some more?
I'm really looking forward to it. Yes, I shall be back next week. I've had an absolute blast again tonight. Great to chat with everyone, and even better to be on the show with you both. So thanks for having me, and thanks for another brilliant time.
Mate, it's our pleasure, and thank you for joining us as well. And Manny, we will be doing Football Has a Problem very soon. So yes. But no, thank you again, mate, and always a pleasure. And yes, we will do that next week as well. And also, before we go, Willie Calabero, a close third. Cracking night, lads. Thanks, Tom. And great stream again, it says Mr. B. Cheers, mate. We have got, along with pure predictions, the opportunity to get involved in a Premier League prediction league game. So, what you need to do, go to our most recent video that was not live. So that is the shirt show, the really nice white shirt that's got still the pink logo in the middle. If you go to that, and then go to the description, there is all the joining instructions there. You can sign into the league that we're in. You'll know which one it is because it'll say invited to Up the Cherries in All Departments League, and also for the club as well. And there will be like a rotation of the top 8 players or top 5 players. So please do get involved in that. It is free. There is prizes by Pure Predictions. They will send that out to you as well. They'll explain what the prizes are. So please do get involved. And they have sent over a video which will be uploaded as well, explaining how you can get involved. But again, thank you again for joining us. If you're new, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. And we shall see you in the next transfer show next week. See you next Thursday at 8 p.m.
TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
I should be like you, Mel.